Hello out there in TV land. This is Aerikvon again. Just wanted to say hello. We're going to talk about something different today. Anybody who knows me knows that Black Sabbath is very much my favorite band in the world. There is no band in my milieu who are more important and better than Black Sabbath. One of the big things, though, that very few people talk about, except for like the extreme few, is the singer Tony Cat Martin. Tony Cat Martin may be the least known of all the Sabbath singers, but in many ways, he was the catch-all best singer. He could handle the Ozzy stuff as well as anybody who was in the band after him, probably the best, even though some people debate whether he was as good. No, I think Ozzy had too distinct a voice. He sang more through his nose and had hit higher notes. But at the same time, Tony Martin never sounded bad singing an Ozzy song, which some of the other singers could easily be lumped under. I mean, I love Dio. His version of NIB was great, but some of his other Sabbath songs were not as good. Tony Cat Martin came kind of from nowhere. He had his own things going on. His vocals on Eternal Idol are excellent. I don't think I've heard a better singer in my life than Tony Martin on Eternal Idol. That album just thrills the hell out of me. It's heavy, it's dark, it's elegant. They brought something new to Sabbath. Eternal Idol brought an elegance to the Sabbath sound, which was mostly a blues-heavy bass. Eternal Idol was the first record to really bring in a weird, like, European classical vibe. It's a very slick record, too. I know a lot of fans don't like it because it doesn't have that traditional Sabbath rawness, but I personally, when I first heard it, I thought it was amazing. The tracks Nightmare, Born to Lose, Hard Life to Love, it covers a lot of the old Sabbath themes, but at the same time, it's a very, very classy and elegant record. The production is top-notch. It sounds like $1 million. It's a sound you could only get in the 80s. I don't think you could ever approach a record with that sonic tone again. But the real star of the record is Tony Martin. I know a lot of people think that Ray Gillen, who went on to form another band with the guitar player of Ozzy, Jakey Lee, later, was the preferable singer. I don't think so. I've heard his version of the record, and I think that version of the record is very much the vocals are much more shrill, glam rocky vocals. I think that Tony Cat Martin had a much fuller voice. In some ways on that record, he sounds more like Ronnie James Dio, but a much smoother delivery. And if you look on the record after that, Headless Cross is a top 10 in any book. A lot of people don't like it once again because it's a lot more of this high impact, classically tinged Sturm und Drang style of songwriting that Sabbath was not usually part of. I think that Headless Cross is a highlight for any band. The title track, Devil and Daughter, Killing the Spirit World When Death Calls, that song just shreds it. Tony Martin hit some impossibly beautiful notes on that as well. I think that Headless Cross needs to be re-examined. And after that, Tear's a hugely debated record. The single feels good to me. Not a fan of it. Very ballady, very, I hate to use the word sellout, but I think it kind of was. It's the kind of thing the record company at the time was probably like, we need a single, so here you go. But the heavy songs of it, the Sabbath Stones, Anu Mundi, absolutely brilliant stuff. And Tony really delivers on those vocals. A lot of people, they like to shit on it because the whole cycle of what Sabbath had changed so often at that point. It was no longer about big bluesy heavy riffs, but very elegant, tasteful playing from Iommi. And I think that put a lot of people off. But if you really listen to those albums, they're dark, they're interesting, they're intricate, and I think they're everything that a good heavy metal band should be. They took a break, obviously, for Dehumanizer. We'll talk about that later. But right after it, the most important thing that happened was that Black Sabbath came back with Geezer Butler. Bill Ward was supposed to be on it. There's footage of Tony Martin, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward together that's worth checking out because it's pretty much the original Sabbath band with Tony Martin for one or two shows, the video. It's cool. I'll link to that underneath when I find it. I'll give you a good link to that. And also, after that, they made Cross Purposes. This was my first Tony Martin record. I had been a young kid, in the 90s. I had heard Sabbath. I thought it was the greatest thing. And, I heard the Ozzy stuff. I heard the Dio stuff. And out of nowhere comes this tape with a the Angel with Fire and everything, it's cross purposes. I think it's a great record. I mean, the production choices are, you're in there, you get the little too much in the way of keyboards and a little too much in the way of, like, it's a very damp mix in some ways, but the songwriting is great. Eyewitness, Cross of Thorns, sorry. All of that is excellent stuff. And the real star of all of these records, if you put them together, is Tony Martin. The One Black Mark is the Forbidden record. I personally have fond memories of going out, and I bought the thing on tape, because 1995, I think. It has its moments. Can't Get Close Enough to You. Excellent stuff. I mean, Tony really puts a good mood. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty of this. What saved Sabbath in that period? What kept it together when it wasn't just Tony? It was Tony Martin. Tony Martin's voice unified a whole period where you had changing drummers and bass players every record. You had different vibes, different themes. They were very much a band that was looking for their next phase, and Tony Martin was always great lyricist, great vocalist. I mean, his stage presence, a lot of people debate. I don't think that's nearly as important as his recorded output. But I think Tony Martin, from Eternal Idol to Forbidden, held this band together and gave them some of their greatest songs and vocal performances. If you take away the chaos that surrounded Sabbath as a commercial entity, Tony Martin is actually the MVP of that band. He held them together when they had nothing else. And of course, Tony Iommi is my favorite guitar player, so his songwriting, of course, dominates much of this. But Tony Martin does not get the love he deserves. He does not get all of the attention that he rightfully earned as the lead vocalist of Black Sabbath. I think you should all go back, listen to these records, and I'm going to put a lot of links in the description for you to check out for you newcomers to Sabbath who think that maybe Ozzy and potentially Dio are the line for that. I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice. As a singer myself, Tony Martin had a huge influence on my career because there was at times I listened to Tony Martin far more than Dio or an Ozzy, and I tried to do everything that he was capable of doing, which was a lot. If you hear When Death Calls, he hit some notes on that are just amazing. His live stuff is good. Everything was good. I saw the 1995 tour. It was not, with Motorhead, it was not a great tour, but they sounded incredible. It was, I think, a messy time for metal when people weren't showing up. So as a young kid, it was a little deflating to see a half-filled venue. But I don't blame Sabbath for that or Motorhead. I blame the fact that heavy metal itself had not been in good shape as a commercial entity. As time goes on, and I've heard that they're going to be re-releasing all the Tony Martin records soon, remixed, remastered, and everything, I hope as time goes on that a lot more people can dig into these albums and see what I saw in this band, which kept me purchasing it even when most people were blowing them off for, Ozzy's more successful solo stuff, Dio's more successful solo stuff. I think that Black Sabbath with Tony Martin is a vastly underlooked band, and I think Tony Martin himself is a singer that doesn't get enough love. I hope that in Tony Martin's future, a lot of his solo stuff comes together differently and gets presented in a similar way, because I feel that his post-Sabbath work wasn't exactly cohesive in terms of branding and marketing, which hurt it, but Tony's an excellent singer, seems like a hell of a guy, and I really wanted to help promote an era of Black Sabbath that while it is dear to a small group of people, should be a wider audience thing. And that will be all for today. Check out the links in the description and check out some Black Sabbath that you might not have previously given some time to. Because, as I said, Headless Cross, an amazing record. Eternal Idol, an amazing record. Tear has some amazing moments, and so does everything else. So, signing off, check out the links in the description, and find yourself some new Black Sabbath. Till next time.